My husband broke his leg, but my mother-in-law insisted that he go back home for tomb sweeping day to visit the graves. Visiting the graves requires crossing 8 mountains. I advised my husband to recover first and go next year. My husband agreed, but his recovery was not going well. And he ended up lame. My mother-in-law wailed and cried, grabbing me as she cursed. It's all because you wouldn't let my son go back to sweep the grave. This is the retribution for being unfilial. Even my husband looked at me with resentment. Later, he cheated on me and said that every time he took a step, he hated me once. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn to the day my husband asked me whether I wanted to go back and sweep the graves. This time I said, "You decide." I had returned to the day before tomb sweeping day. My husband's fractured right leg was in a cast, propped up on the coffee table. And he was completely sprawled out on the sofa. His phone kept buzzing non-stop. Voice messages from his mother kept popping up one after another. "Son, you must come back for tomb sweeping day to visit the graves. Our family only has you as the one male heir. If you don't come back, there won't even be anyone to burn paper offerings at the graves. Your dad passed away early, and if you don't come back to hold up the family, he won't be able to rest easy even down below. That son from your second uncle's family is coming back this year too. If you can't make it back, who in the clan will take you seriously in the future?" After listening to each line, my husband threw his phone onto the sofa. Then he turned to look at me. "Wife, I have to go back for Qingming. I've heard this line before. In my past life." I tried to persuade him for a whole day and night. I said your leg has a comminuted fracture, and the doctor said you can't bear weight. I said our hometown requires crossing 8 mountain ridges. And you can't even walk to the entrance of the residential compound. I said wait until next year, when your leg has healed, and then go. Our ancestors won't blame you. He wouldn't listen. His mother-in-law wouldn't listen either. In the end, I had to threaten divorce before I managed to stop him. As a result, after half a year of recovery, his leg was still left lame. My mother-in-law knelt in the ancestral hall and cried, pointing at my nose and cursing me. "It's all because of you. You jinx. What's the point of tomb sweeping? It's to let the descendants go and reconnect with and nourish their roots. This is how the family stays connected to its roots. Our ancestors watch over us through these traditions, do you understand? The bloodline of our Liu family depends on this annual tomb sweeping meal to bring in the ancestors' blessings. You cut it off with your own hands." And that's why his legs were crippled. My husband believed it too. Every time he walked with a limp, he would glare at me viciously. "Are you satisfied now? I'm like this because of you." Later, he cheated on me, holding another woman in his arms. He said, "She ruined my leg. And she ruined my whole life. I was thrown out of the house with nothing, left with no share of the marital property. Later, I died in an accidental car crash. And yet, unexpectedly, I had returned to this day." My husband was still waiting for my answer. I looked at his right leg in a cast and remembered the way he had held that woman and said he hated me. Then I smiled. "You're the one who wants to go. So you decide." He froze for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. "You really agree?" "Of course I agree. In my last life, I made decisions for him. And when something went wrong, he blamed everything on me. This life, he chose the path himself. Let's see who he can dump the blame on now. But getting back will require a car." My husband asked me to call my sister to borrow her SUV. I lied. My sister said she needs it herself this year, so she can't lend it. His face sank. "Then what should we do?" "What about our own car?" I asked. The air went quiet. The car was registered under my name. But on the day it was picked up, my mother-in-law said that Xiao Jun from her brother's family should drive it away. And he had been driving it for 3 years straight. I argued and made a scene. But my husband said I was being petty, and my mother-in-law said I was being immature. In the end, the car still wasn't taken back. My husband looked down at his legs. "Then go ask Xiao Jun for it." "Okay, then go tell Xiao Jun." My husband froze. "You're not going to tell him?" I sneered inwardly. Every time we needed the car, I was the one who had to play the bad guy while he stood by and played the good one. Whenever I was about to come back, He would just drive off in silence. If I didn't come back, he would say, "Look at you now, you've made the relationship with the relatives so tense." Anyway, no matter what, he was always the innocent one. I sighed. This car was originally given to Xiaojun for use under your mom's decision. If I go to ask for it back, what would your mom think? She'd definitely think I'm still holding a grudge over what happened back then. And then there'd be another fight at home. My husband opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. He probably wanted to object, but for the sake of the family, he was left speechless. If I had thrown a tantrum and shamelessly demanded the car, he could still have looked down on me and criticized me for not caring about the relative's dignity. Now that I'm being so considerate, he instead has nothing to say. In the end, he called himself. When the call connected, Xiaojun said he needed to use the car during Qingming festival to take his girlfriend out. My husband panicked. This is an important matter for tomb sweeping. Xiaojun hung up right away. My husband was holding the phone. Trembling, he suddenly turned to look at me. "Can't you say something on my behalf?" I sighed. Xiaojun is still young. He'll understand when he's a bit older. That was what they used to shut me up before. My husband's face turned red, and his lips trembled for a long time before he could get any words out. Fortunately, the high-speed rail tickets had not sold out. When we had just set out, he sat in the wheelchair, turning the wheels to glide forward, not even wanting me to push him. In the elevator, we ran into a neighbor. When the neighbor asked where he was going, he raised his voice a few notches. "Going back to my hometown to sweep the graves for Qingming festival." The neighbor glanced at his legs, seeming to want to say something but stopping himself. He acted as if he hadn't noticed at all. After getting on the train, he immediately started to wilt. The space in second class was already small, and with his leg in a cast propped there, it was even more inconvenient. I just pretended not to see it. After a while, my husband poked my arm. "I'm thirsty." "Then drink more water." My husband was stunned. "Then give me the water." I showed him my empty hands. "I forgot to bring it." "How could you forget to bring it?" He raised his voice. I hummed twice and began resting with my eyes closed. Whenever I used to go out, I would have everything perfectly prepared, fill the thermos with water, stuff snacks into my bag, and even carry a warm blanket with me. And what happened? When he kicked me out, he didn't even let me take a single change of clothes. He looked at me, then looked at me again. It seemed like he was waiting for me to take the initiative and buy him water. And he just kept waiting like that until the car stopped. When we got off, he wouldn't let me help him. It was obvious he was sulking over the water issue, where the wheelchair couldn't get through. He leaned on his cane and walked by himself, deliberately bumping into obstacles and grimacing in pain. He was basically forcing me to feel sorry for him, so I'd hurry up and apologize for not bringing water and, in return, get the privilege of helping support him as he walked. He was so sure of these little tricks because I cared about him. This whole life, I just watched him put on a show like watching a monkey act. I casually brushed him off without any real feeling. "Be careful, don't fall." But his hands were in his pockets, and he showed no intention of helping at all. In the end, her husband finally calmed down on his own. He made 5 or 6 calls, but no one answered. The relative who had originally promised to come pick him up was nowhere to be seen. He finally got through to one of them, but amid the clatter of mahjong tiles, the other person complained a few times and hung up. He probably wanted to curse a few times, but when he saw me, he shut his mouth again. In front of me, he always takes his family's side. In the end, we finally managed to hail a car. The driver asked for 300, when it usually only costs 60. My husband gritted his teeth and agreed, then turned to look at me, his expression clearly saying, "Why didn't you bargain?" I turned my gaze to the window. There are too many things like this. He is always the good guy, and I am always the bad one. He's polite and amiable out there, while I have to act like a shrew. The mountain road was bumpy. My husband's right leg bumped against the car door with each sway of the vehicle. He was in so much pain that cold sweat covered his forehead. Yet he clenched his lips and said nothing. If it had been before, I would have already felt sorry for him and made him rest his leg on me. Now I just pretended to be asleep, my head leaning against the car window. My eyes closed. The driver glanced at him several times in the rearview mirror and couldn't help saying, "Bro, your leg is pretty badly injured. And you're still going up the mountain." The husband forced himself to say, "Visiting the graves is a big deal." The driver didn't say anything else. But from his expression, you could tell he was thinking, "This guy must be crazy." By the time they reached the entrance to the village, it was already dark. Mother-in-law stood at the crossroads waiting. As soon as she saw us, she rushed over, her eyes red. "What a sin, how did your leg get hurt so badly?" My husband patted her hand. "It's nothing, just minor injuries. The ancestors bless those who honor them," mother-in-law said, wiping away tears. "Tomorrow go and kowtow a few times at the gravesite. Soak up some of the ancestral grave's spiritual energy. And maybe when you come back, you'll be fine." I stood nearby listening, my heart calm as a dead pool of water. I'd like to see whether, in this lifetime, his legs will still be crippled under the protection of the ancestors. When we got back to my mother-in-law's place, she was already busy gathering the offerings. In the past, every time we swept the graves, I had to help prepare everything. A chicken had to be whole, the pork had to be 3 jin, 3 liang, and 3 qian. And the fruit had to be an odd number rather than an even number. It always took a full day of running around in advance to get everything ready. But my mother-in-law always complained that the chicken was too skinny, and that the apples weren't red enough. My husband would say from the side, "If mom says it's not suitable, then it's not suitable. Go buy another one." So I went. But now, I'm sitting in the room playing on my phone, munching on an apple, completely at ease. My mother-in-law's voice came from the yard. "Son, where's your wife? Why isn't she coming over to help?" My husband stammered. She's tired from riding in the car." My mother-in-law let out a tch, her voice neither too loud nor too soft. "Tired from riding in the car? What's so tiring about that? When I was carrying you, I was still pulling radishes in the fields the day before I went into labor." My husband said he would help wash the vegetables. Mother-in-law gave him a push. "How would you know how to do this, my good son? You should learn from your wife how to enjoy a life of comfort." I didn't care. Whoever wanted to do it could do it. Anyway, it wasn't my ancestors. In the middle of the night, my husband kept tossing and turning in bed. His legs started to ache and swell. I heard him suck in a sharp breath. And I also heard him call out softly, "Honey." I didn't respond. I pretended to be sound asleep. He was silent for a long time, then sighed and propped himself up to sit, groping for the water to pour himself a drink. But where is the water? In the past, the water in the kettle was always boiled and poured by me, and I would place it where he could reach it just by stretching out his hand. When he needed to turn over in the middle of the night, I would support his legs. When he needed to go to the bathroom, I would help him make his way step by step along the narrow hallway. He had forgotten it all. He only remembered me stopping him from sweeping the grave. Early the next morning, before it was even light, my mother-in-law came knocking on the door. Get up. Get up. Let's go up the mountain early while it's still cool. There are 8 mountain ridges, we won't get there until noon if we walk." My husband struggled to sit up, his face completely pale. I glanced at his leg. It had already started to swell slightly. It was a comminuted fracture. And the doctor had said he absolutely must not bear any weight. Absolutely not. But I said nothing. In the kitchen, my mother-in-law was putting joss paper and incense sticks into a basket. When she saw me come in, she didn't even lift her eyelids. "Take that pot of oil with you. We need to pour it as an offering at the ancestral grave on the way." "Okay." I held the oil bottle in my hands, being unbelievably polite. My mother-in-law probably found it odd. She stared at me for several seconds, muttering, "You're being unusually well-behaved today," and said nothing else. But after my husband came out in his wheelchair, he looked at me carrying the stuff and froze for a moment. "Mom, who's going to push me later? So many relatives, if each of them pushed for a stretch, she'd be up there in no time." When they went out, The relatives came in a grand procession. But when asked who could push the wheelchair, they all made excuses and dodged the task. In the end, after the mother-in-law pleaded with everyone and said everything she could, she finally managed to get 2 half-grown boys, who weren't carrying anything in their hands, to come help. But the road up the mountain was terrible. Calling it a road was generous. It was really just gullies washed out by rainwater, with stones jumbled all over the dirt, and waist-high thatch grass on both sides. It was full of potholes, and the wheelchair wheels got stuck several times. The 2 half-grown boys were sweating profusely as they pushed, cursing under their breath, growing more and more irritable the harder they pushed. When crossing a ditch, with a sudden hard push, the wheelchair tilted sharply to the left, and half of my husband's body was left hanging in the air. His face turned pale in an instant, and both hands clutched the armrests tightly, his lips trembling. I stood behind and watched, expressionless. My mother-in-law was beside us, so anxious she kept stamping her feet. Slow down, don't let my son fall. Before she could finish, the wheelchair tilted again and almost toppled over completely. Who can push this damn cart? After cursing a few times, the half-grown boy bolted off in a flash. The mother-in-law handed me the basket, but after pushing it twice, still couldn't move it. My husband could only walk with the help of crutches. I carried the basket and walked in front, while my mother-in-law supported my husband as they walked behind. Before we had gone 50 meters, he was already drenched in sweat. My husband's cane slipped on the gravel, and he pitched sideways. My mother-in-law reached out to help him, nearly getting pulled down with him. Mom, I can't go on. My husband panted heavily. Almost there. Once we get over this hill, we'll be there. Mom. My husband's voice was trembling. How many more do we have to climb? Not many. Just 4 or 5. Actually, it was 8. My husband didn't say anything else. He lowered his head, clenched his teeth, and moved forward step by step. I carried the oil can, unhurried. When we reached the middle of the first hillside, my husband finally couldn't hold on any longer. He sat down on the ground, gasping for breath. Mom, how about we just don't go? No, the mother-in-law said through clenched teeth. You have to go. Your dad's grave is in the back hill. If you don't even go to your dad's grave, what will the people in the clan think of you? You know what your second uncle is like, didn't you know that mouth of his? He could keep talking about it until the day you die. My husband didn't answer, but looked at me. I had seen that look many times. Every time he ran into trouble, he would look at me with that kind of gaze, expecting me to step in and stand up for him. This time, as always, they were counting on me to be the unfilial one, to bear the consequences of not offering sacrifices to our ancestors or sweeping their graves. I stood there, my expression flat, saying not a single word. The light in his eyes gradually faded. Mother-in-law glanced at the sky. Why don't we rest for a while before leaving? My husband nodded gratefully. I sat down on a stone by the roadside and opened my water bottle to drink. My husband opened his mouth as if to say something, then swallowed it back down. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, rummaged through the basket and handed over a thermos cup. Son, have some water. My husband took the cup, tilted his head back and gulped a mouthful, then suddenly coughed it back out, coughing so hard that tears streamed down his face. Hot. Oh dear. I figured it was cold up in the mountains, so I specially filled it with hot water for you, my mother-in-law said, patting his back. Drink slowly. I turned my head and looked at the distant mountains. After resting for 10 minutes, we started walking again. My mother-in-law kept saying, slow down. Then, our ancestors are watching. Hang in there. In 10 minutes. We walked 100 meters. My mother-in-law grew anxious. At this rate, we won't make it before dark. How about finding someone to carry you? My husband's eyes lit up. The relatives who had been slowly walking over from nearby sped up when they heard that, and disappeared in just a few seconds. My mother-in-law's face darkened, but she was too embarrassed to say anything, and instead took it out on me. It's just a basket. And you don't even know to lend a hand. By the time we were halfway up the third mountain, my husband finally couldn't hold out any longer. He slumped on a rock. His injured right leg stretched straight out. The old woman squatted beside him, wiping away his sweat with her sleeve, still muttering, "Hold on a little longer. Once we get over this hill, it'll be fine. Think about your daughter's been waiting down there for a year just for you to come." My husband closed his eyes, his chest rising and falling so violently it sounded like a bellows being pumped. I stood 3 steps away, still holding the pot of oil in my hands. In my previous life, I did everything I could to stop him from going, and I was cursed at for a full 6 years. In this life, I let him choose for himself. I wanted to see just how much that word filial piety was really worth. Or, my husband opened his eyes and looked at me with difficulty. Or, wife, you go for me. Bow to dad on my behalf and burn some paper money. I almost laughed out loud. He didn't use to say that. After he started limping, every time we argued he would bring up old grievances. "You're the one who ruined me. What would you know about how important tomb sweeping is?" "Honey," I said gently, "I'd like to go. But Mom said tomb sweeping is a matter for the men of the Liu family. I married into this family. Your ancestors wouldn't accept offerings from me anyway." My mother-in-law's face stiffened. My husband opened his mouth, then closed it again. He probably remembered that his mother really had said something like that. It was the year we had just gotten married, and I offered to go sweep my father-in-law's grave. My mother-in-law stopped me on the spot. "What are you going for? You're a daughter-in-law who married into this family. Just stay home and cook and wait." In this situation, who could you blame? My husband's cane was planted on the ground, motionless for a long time. He stared at his own legs, as if making some momentous decision. "Mom," he finally said, his voice so low it was almost inaudible, "why don't we let it go this year?" His mother-in-law's expression changed at once. "Let it go? How can we just let it go?" Her voice turned shrill. "We've come all this way and now you say let it go? Even that useless one from your second uncle's family knows to go back and burn paper offerings. You're the eldest son and eldest grandson. If you don't go, there won't even be a trace of paper ash at your father's grave this year." "But my leg. What's wrong with your leg? Your ancestors will bless you." My mother-in-law's tone softened again, carrying a kind of almost superstitious conviction. "Visiting the grave is about reporting your hardships to the ancestors. If you go kneel and pay respects with a broken leg, wouldn't that show even more sincerity? If he gives it a little push from below, maybe your leg will get better after all." My husband's expression wavered. He looked at me, as if waiting for me to say something. If this had happened before, I definitely would have rushed up and argued with my mother-in-law. She said this was feudal superstition. You don't trust the doctor's diagnosis, but you trust this instead. If his leg ends up ruined, are you going to take responsibility? And then all the anger was directed at me. This time, I just gave a slight smile. "Honey, you're the head of the family. Just decide." Mother-in-law immediately chimed in. "Then let's keep going. My son is the most filial of all our ancestors will surely bless us." At last, on a downhill stretch, he stumbled, and his whole body lurched forward. Mother-in-law let out a scream. I didn't even have time to stop rather. I didn't really want to. He fell onto the gravel road, and the cast on his right leg hit a protruding rock with a dull thud. My husband let out a miserable cry. My mother-in-law rushed over and pulled him into her arms, tears streaming down her face at once. "My son, are you all right?" My husband was in so much pain that he couldn't speak. He could only bite his lip hard, his whole body trembling. I stood beside him, watching him huddle on the ground. 8 mountains. In my previous life, I had already described to him what the concept of 8 mountains meant. He listened, but he didn't take it seriously, or rather, he knew it mattered. But when his leg was lame, he still had to find someone to blame. He didn't blame himself, and he didn't blame his mother. The one he blamed was me. He blamed me, the woman who stopped him from climbing even after he'd broken a bone and still wanted to scale 8 mountains. "Mom, My husband opened his eyes, his voice trembling. I can't climb anymore. The grandmother squatted down, patted his head, and coaxed him like a child. Be good. The ancestors are watching. Your filial devotion will be blessed by them. Blessed by the ancestors. I repeated that line in my mind. When the ancestors were alive, they never amounted to much, so after death, can they really bless people? In the end, it was an older brother who helped carry him up there. Mother-in-law gave him several hundred yuan. The older brother hesitated for a moment, looked at my husband's plastered leg, swollen almost to the point of bursting, then looked at the rolling ridge line in the distance, and said, "Forget it. Forget it. We're relatives after all." When they reached the grave, mother-in-law arranged the offerings and lit the incense and candles. My husband couldn't kneel, so he sat in the wheelchair and bowed toward the grave. My mother-in-law kowtowed 3 times, murmuring under her breath, "Ancestors of the Liu family, your descendants have come to see you. He hurt his leg. Please bless him from beneath the earth and let him recover soon." After the paper was burned and the firecrackers set off, my mother-in-law told me to pour the pot of oil in front of the grave. I poured the oil down and watched the orange-yellow liquid seep into the yellow earth. My mother-in-law and my husband stared intently as well, as if hoping the oil would awaken their ancestors. By the time we got home, it was already evening. My husband was taken straight to the town clinic. When the doctor saw his cast split like that, his face turned green. "How far exactly did you make him walk?" My mother-in-law hemmed and hawed. "Just a few steps. You have to walk when visiting a grave. After all." The doctor glanced at her expression. "We can't handle this here. He needs to be transferred to a hospital in the city." My mother-in-law's knees gave out, and she collapsed onto the floor. They called a car that same night and sent her husband to the city hospital. The mountain road was bumpy, and her husband groaned in pain the whole way in the car, while his mother-in-law held his head and cried all the way. When they got to the hospital, the doctor took an X-ray, and his expression turned very grim. "We need to operate immediately, but you must sign a liability waiver. Since it's come to this point, there's a significant risk of paralysis after the surgery." When my mother-in-law heard the word paralysis, she staggered back a step. Then, "Will he still be able to recover?" The doctor didn't give a definite answer, only said, "It depends on his fate." When my husband was wheeled into the operating room, he looked back at me, and his expression was very complicated. I just stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall, saying nothing. The surgery lasted nearly 4 hours. When my husband was wheeled out, his right leg from the top of his thigh all the way to his ankle had been fixed with steel pins and plates. Far worse than the limp he had in his previous life, by more than 10-fold. In his previous life, it was only because it had developed improperly, and he walked with a limp. In this life, the doctor said that even if he recovered well, he would still have to use a cane for the rest of his life. If he didn't recover well, this leg might be ruined. His mother-in-law cried loudly in the ward, so loudly that the whole building could hear her. As she cried, she suddenly started cursing at me. "You jinx! This is all your fault. If you had taken better care of him, would he have broken his leg? If you hadn't let go of him on the mountain, would he have fallen and ended up like this? It's all your fault." Her finger was almost poking my face, with today's yellow cemetery soil still stuck under her fingernails. My husband was looking at me too. I was all too familiar with that look. After he became lame in his last life, every time he had trouble walking, it was that same look. Her husband spoke in a hoarse voice. "The doctor said that if we hadn't come hiking back then and had properly rested, there was a very good chance it could have fully recovered." He paused. "Why didn't you stop me?" I burst out laughing. The room fell silent for a moment. My mother-in-law's sobs caught in her throat, and my husband's expression shifted from resentment to shock. They probably had never heard me laugh like that before. Not a bitter laugh, not a sneering laugh, just the kind that feels genuinely funny, the kind that makes you burst out laughing. I asked, "What if I had stopped you and your leg still ended up crippled?" My husband looked at me blankly. My mother-in-law only froze for a moment before blowing up. "What do you mean by that? How dare you talk back? You're nothing but a jinx. A husband killer. A family killer. A curse on my son. I'm telling you. His leg was ruined because of you. You have to take care of him for the rest of your life. You owe him this. Even if you die, you'll never be able to pay it back. I was even more tempted to laugh. In my previous life, I sincerely tried to stop her. And she cursed me as a bringer of bad luck. In this life, I followed her son's wishes. And she still cursed me as a bringer of bad luck. If only I could really bring bad luck after all. I ignored my crazy mother-in-law. I knew that what she felt more than anything was fear. Afraid that her precious eldest son would have no one to take care of him in the future. She quickly pinned a whole set of moral and etiquette standards on me. It was a bit better than in my previous life. In my previous life, when I was at the end of my rope, I also lost my head and thought of asking my mother-in-law to help say a few words. She completely stopped mentioning morality. All she ever says is that her son cheating means her son is capable. If I can't keep her son in line, then it's all my own fault. How amusing it is to see her jumping up in fear like this now. I turned to look at my husband and reached for his leg. I just want to ask. How exactly did you break that leg? My husband's eyes darted away. Why are you asking this? It's been so long. Didn't I say I was hit by a car? Hit by a car. I tilted my head. Then where's the person who hit you? And where exactly did it happen? In fact, I had already asked him about these issues when he injured his leg. At the time, I was both heartbroken and angry. And I wanted nothing more than to find the culprit right away and run over his leg twice. But my husband kept saying it was no big deal. Not a serious injury at all. He also said the culprit had it hard too. And asked why I was being so petty and needlessly nitpicky. After a few buckets of cold water were poured on me, I couldn't even be bothered to deal with this anymore. It was only some hidden truth I discovered after the divorce. My husband couldn't answer and turned to my mother-in-law for help. Just as he had done countless times before with me, my mother-in-law caught his look and immediately panicked. Why are you asking about this? It's all in the past. Why bring up old scores? Now it's your responsibility. And you can't run from it. I ignored her, my eyes fixed on my husband. You were hit by a car. Did you call the police? He avoided my gaze. No. Why not? I was in a lot of pain at the time. And I didn't think that much. What about the driver who caused the accident? You should at least remember the license plate. Right. He fell silent. His mother-in-law cut in from the side. He's already injured this badly and you're still interrogating him. Do you even have a heart? My husband's face kept getting paler. And it wasn't all because of the pain. Honey. I moved a little closer. My voice softening. Tell me who hit you. I'll go find him. Make him pay. And have him go to jail. You've suffered so much you can't just let it go. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. I smiled a little. I knew the answer. After the divorce, I accidentally heard Xiao Jun, while drunk, let it slip that my ex-husband's leg wasn't injured in a car accident at all. It was broken when he fought with someone at a construction site and fell. The reason for the fight was also disgraceful. He had been having an affair with another man's wife. And when her husband led people to corner him, he panicked and jumped from the second floor. After the fall, he didn't dare tell the truth, and kept to the same story to outsiders. He was hit by a car, and the driver fled the scene. How dignified. It perfectly fits the image he presents in front of everyone. Honest, dutiful, family-oriented, treated unfairly by fate, and with a wife who is also unkind to him. I got the call Xiaowen made to you. Oh. Actually no, I only learned that name after my divorce. But he suddenly looked up, his face full of surprise. Anyone could tell that he had a problem. Only later did I learn that while his leg was fractured, he still often took advantage of the times when I was at work to go meet his mistress. Perhaps that was the real reason he ended up with a limp. But he shifted all the blame onto me, using that excuse to suppress me before the divorce. And after the divorce, using it as an excuse for his cheating. What a pity. What a pity. I should have had my legs ruined earlier in this life. What do you mean by that? My mother-in-law asked sharply, sensing something was off. But I didn't keep arguing with them. After I got home, I first put away the property deed, passbook, bank card, and other valuable things. In my past life, I left with nothing, not even a change of clothes. In this life, I have to learn to be a bit smarter. When he was in surgery, I was the one keeping his phone. Although I had never gone through his phone before, he was still very security conscious. He deleted the chat records cleanly. And there wasn't even anything unusual in the payment records. But it still falls a little short. I turned on the computer in his study and restored the bills and chat records from the web version, taking screenshots one by one. During that time, he kept calling me, but I didn't answer any of them. After taking the screenshots, I called a car and, carrying my big bags, headed to my sister's place. When I was leaving the residential complex, I saw my mother-in-law get off a bus, drenched in sweat, and run home. The divorce proceedings did not go smoothly, but it didn't matter. I had plenty of time to argue with them. All the family assets were in my hands, even the money on my husband's phone. I transferred to my own phone when he was undergoing surgery. He still uses his mother's money for all his food and clothes now. He threatened to call the police on me. I said, "Why are you so stingy? You're being way too petty." On the other end of the phone, he was huffing and puffing in anger. Later, they resorted to using elder intimidation tactics. They sent the older relatives in the family to come and curse me in turns. They said cheating was no big deal and that I should give the man another chance. I said everything you said was right, but my husband broke his leg. So please lend us some money for treatment. They just ran off directly, after several weeks of back and forth. My husband ultimately couldn't keep up with it anymore and agreed to the divorce. I heard that now he can't even use a cane and can only sit in a wheelchair. When he was discharged from the hospital, my mother-in-law suggested taking the bus back. He got so angry that he had several arguments with his mother-in-law. And after coming back, he called Xiaojun every day demanding the car. Once I ran into Xiaojun, and Xiaojun was still complaining to me that after coming back from sweeping the grave, his cousin was like a completely different person, when he used to be so generous. I said, yeah. Later, I heard that he had gotten together with his mistress. He even called me to say that the mistress was very kind, and didn't mind him at all. Completely unlike a cold-blooded person like me. I said, "Is your leg better now? Have your ancestors blessed you?" He hung up the phone right away. But not long after, I heard that the mistress had run off with all the money. He was so angry that he smashed all the ancestral tablets at home. He cursed the ancestors as useless things who only knew how to take offerings, saying that if it hadn't been for going to sweep their graves, how would he have ended up with a broken leg? Fortunately, his leg was beyond healing. Otherwise, wouldn't he have gone to dig up graves? But none of this had anything to do with me anymore.